This question is from one of our students, Shri, who is preparing for the PMP exam. And we're going to address Shri's question. And the question is on page 177 in the PMBOK Guide. So why don't we journey to page 177 and see what exactly is there in the PMBOK Guide. 177. So Shri, thank you for sending this in. It's always a pleasure to get your questions in and to answer these for you. So let's go to page 177 and check out the context of this question. Of course, we are reading from none other than the PMBOK Guide, and this is under Trends and Emerging Practices in Project Schedule Management. And Shri, I think it's an awesome idea to focus on the trends and emerging practices just in case this stuff comes up on the exam. It could come out on the exam. All right, so it says some of the emerging practices for project scheduling methods include, but are not limited to. There we go again with that phrase. And then you've got the first bullet, iterative scheduling with a backlog. And it reads, this is a form of rolling wave planning based on adaptive life cycles, such as the Agile Approach for product development. The requirements are documented in user stories that are then prioritized and refined just prior to construction. And the product features are developed using time-boxed periods of work. And I think this is where Shri's question comes in, this particular section where it states, this approach is often used to deliver incremental value to the customer, or when multiple teams can concurrently develop a large number of features that have few interconnected dependencies. This scheduling method is appropriate for many projects as indicated by the widespread and growing use of adaptive life cycles for product development. You see that? So Shri, you got to read the whole story, which I'm sure you did. But if you were going to break it down, you would probably want a visual. So I'm going to show you a visual here really quickly as to what exactly this means. Of course, you know, this is a classic page from the world of Agile. So everything that is being looked at here is pretty much from the world of Agile. And in the world of Agile, we use user stories to capture these requirements. So that is spoken about as part of this dialogue here. So let's go to the whiteboard very quick, Shri, and just take a look at this sentence. The first sentence, it says, this is a form of rolling wave planning. So we're talking about iterative scheduling using a backlog. Here's your backlog. Here are your user stories, user-oriented requirements, and of course you know how these are written. As a user, I would like X so that Y or Z. Okay, so this is your backlog, your product backlog. Ultimately, your product backlog is not treated the same way that your traditional schedule is. Your product backlog is going to be whittled down into a sprint backlog for each iteration. So this is your sprint backlog. And your sprint backlog is an offshoot of your product backlog for you to execute in your sprint. And of course, you know your sprint has the 24-hour cycle where you have your stand-up meeting with your team members. So after several successions of doing this, maybe over a period of 4 weeks, maybe more, okay, out comes this deliverable. But this is an incremental deliverable. That's really what this is saying, okay? This is incremental. On the first go round, Shri, this is version 1 or the first iteration. On the first iteration, let's call it iteration 1, okay? Iteration 1 of the deliverable, you're going to have some functionality, but not all. Then this is going to happen all over again, and you're going to have iteration 2 of this deliverable, which will be increased. So you have more functionality in iteration 2, and then it happens again and again until you get all the functionality that you're looking for. So you're going to be taking out increments of this product backlog on each iteration until you've exhausted all of the user stories in here. And that is really what they're referring to. It says this approach is used to deliver incremental value. Which incremental value? The incremental value in this deliverable right here. Okay. Why do we want to deliver incremental value? Well, it enables us to get to market quick with a first iteration or a first round of the deliverable, get some feedback from the marketplace, understand what value is in the perspective of the customer, and in iteration 2, when you do this again, you're going to add some additional functionality that may be more valuable, maybe even beyond what you had in there at first. So this is very adaptive. Okay, this is adaptive, and that's why it is covered in this section of iterative scheduling. Okay, because you are adapting based on various parameters, based on the marketplace, based on the customer's changing requirements. You know, let's read a little bit more. Let's go back to your question slide here and just read a little bit more. So this approach that I just showed you is used to deliver incremental value, as you saw, you know, breaking it down into iterations to the customer, or when multiple teams can concurrently develop a large number of features that have few interconnected dependencies. So when you look at how Agile works, it is very possible to have people working on all of these, but separately. You could have developer 1, developer 2, and developer 3 working on pieces that have few interconnections. So what I'm doing here may have little or no bearing with this. It may have some interconnections with other pieces, but it's not like your traditional schedule where I have to get this done and then I do this, or this is dependent on this, or this is dependent on the finish of, you know what I'm saying? So Shri, this way of scheduling, right? I'll just say the traditional way of scheduling is being replaced in many circles by this, okay? So going back to your slide, where it says, this approach is often used to deliver incremental value to the customer, or when multiple teams can concurrently develop a large number of features that have few interconnected dependencies. That is precisely what they mean, Shri, okay? The way scheduling takes place on many projects, especially in the IT realm, is changing. So things are not like they were before. You know, in the traditional way of scheduling, it would be A, then B, or they're all linked. You know, in this regard, it is the team that decides what to do and when. And apart from that, a lot of what the team is doing, though it will add to the final deliverable, for those features to get into the final deliverable, they don't necessarily need to be done in a particular order. To get further clarity on the roadmap for this, Shri, I want to advise that you look at the develop schedule process. And I think during our class, we looked at this high level overview of release planning. So I want to encourage you to go to page 216 and take a look. You know, what we're looking at here is just, for example, iteration 0 on page 216, or iteration 1. It's just one tiny little piece, you see. So what the PMI is just trying to tell you on page 177 is that this is a trend, okay? It is a trend that you need to be aware of. It says emergent practices in project management. With high levels of uncertainty and unpredictability in a fast-paced, highly competitive global marketplace where long-term scope is difficult to define, it is becoming even more important to have a contextual framework for effective adoption and tailoring of development practices to do what? Respond to the changing needs of the environment. So what we're looking at here, Shri, this blurb here is really underscoring the need to adapt, okay? The need to respond to the changing needs. It says adaptive planning defines a plan, but acknowledges, watch this on page 177, it says, but acknowledges that once work starts, the priorities may change and the plan needs to reflect this new knowledge. So if we go back to our whiteboard here, Shri, and take a look at this doodle here, what they're trying to tell you in that text is that a priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 could change to something entirely different. It could include a new priority 1, a new priority 3, and 2, 3, and 4 could be rearranged. This is why we call it adaptive, okay? You might even get to the end of the project and you decide that all of these other ones, including 4, are going to be scrapped and you don't need them anymore. You have what you need from just iteration 1 and 2. Forget about iteration 3, 4, 5. We don't need these anymore. We're satisfied with what we have. This is what we need for the marketplace right now. Okay, so that is what is being discussed on page 177, Shri. I hope this makes sense to you. If you have any additional questions about your favorite book, you know what to do. Don't hesitate to send them in. And if you've got any questions, you know, along the lines of Agile that you would like further clarity on, don't forget to watch the videos on the learning management system, because you still have those videos on the LMS to watch, Shri, in the Agile section. Okay? So watch those in the Agile section. And oh, don't forget, you also have what our friend Ken has made available. I'm going to share that with you right now. You can see right here we have the Scrum guide, and actually it's not just Ken, it's Ken and Jeff. So the Scrum guide is free. If anyone out there is struggling and having trouble with understanding the Scrum terms, I want to recommend go look up the Scrum guide. Just do a search for the Scrum guide and you can get all of the definitions, you know, about sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review. All of this stuff is there, and they've really done a great job in making it available for free. So why don't you just go there and download a copy? Like I said, it's free, and they've done an awesome job in making this available to project managers and Scrum masters who want to make this official in their firms with some definite terms. You know, some of what I talked about is here, Shri, the product backlog. It goes into the details, sprint planning, sprint review. It's just good reading. And some of the other terms that I may have mentioned in between, you'll also find there as well. Okay, it's a Scrum guide. Download that PDF and share it with other PMs, because a lot of people don't know that Scrum is not like one of these methods you have to pay for before you use or before you get some good instruction on. You know, Ken and Jeff made this available for free. I think it's so kind of them to do that, you know. And a little while back, some individuals loftily created a version of the so-called Scrum book, or whatever you want to call it. And Ken wasn't very happy. I don't blame him for not being happy, because that is not in the spirit of Scrum. You know, making a quick buck is not in the spirit of Scrum. This was made or crafted by a number of people with lots of effort, and it is an evolving body of work. But these two guys, they are the dons of the movement. So when people loftily put together what they call a body of knowledge for Scrum, you're obviously going to get a lot of consternation from the community of practice. No one's going to embrace that, because it's not from the boss, from the dons of the movement. So that's that, Shri. I hope that helped you, and I wish you all the best in your prep. I am looking forward to you killing it, so let's do this. I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of your friend Phil for another dose, another round of PMP exam dogma. All right? I'll see you on the other side as a PMP.